Chapter 2 Laurvelle's Dream. Laurvelle and Meramellia were in Astro Coffee, having just received their coffees and scones. Laurvelle had ordered a black coffee with sugar and a chocolate chip scone, whereas Meramellia had ordered a caramel latte and a vanilla scone. Meramellia, I'm surprised you can eat or drink, seeing as you're an AI. Meramellia shrugged and sipped her coffee. This place follows different rules than the real world. Of course, I'm sure there's places around the world where the veil between the physical world and the digital world are much lighter, places where I can probably appear before you as a typical human. But for now, this is it, in your dreams. Desser had talked about this before, but she never showed me how it worked. Meramellia took a bite out of the scone and watched Laurvelle. What was she like? Right, you weren't here back then. Is it possible for me to show you my memories? Maybe you can see something that I missed. Meramellia shrugged and smiled. I don't see why not. You're already lucid dreaming, so designing the dream wouldn't be too much of a stretch. Alright, we'll do that once we're done here. How's the scone? I don't know. Scony? It's hard to compare it to anything when it's the first thing you've ever had, especially when you only eat in dreams. Then why do you want to go on this date? To talk to you, obviously. Laurvelle finished his coffee and bit into the scone. Fair enough, we don't spend enough time together since we only talk during work. Alright, what do you want to do? Meramellia laughed and reached out to hold Laurvelle's hand. I can wait, don't worry. For now, let's take a look through your memories. Are there any specific that you want to check out? Yeah, there's two memories I want to review. Desser's disappearance and when I first met Jackie. There's something about him I don't understand yet. And that is? It's complicated. I'll point it out when we review that memory. So, how do we get to the first one? There was a car honking outside Astro Coffee, and Meramellia looked out the window. Your old mentor's car? Laurvelle looked out and saw that it was, in fact, Desser's old car, an 1892 Vetrine Crossloader SUV painted gray. Yeah, that's her car. How'd it get here? It's not actually her car, Laurvelle. It's what I call a dream carrier, a device specifically for moving your perspective between dream segments. They're mostly invisible or subtle, but when you lucid dream like this, they become much more pronounced. Once we climb into the car, you'll see that the windshield will show you the first part of the memory, not the exterior of Astro Coffee. It's going to teleport us to the next location, for lack of a better word. And if I got hurt in the memory, will I be hurt again? No, not this time. We function more as ghosts, with the people from your memory seemingly talking to thin air. But you're more than welcome to repeat your lines from before, assuming you remember what you said. Okay, well, I'll try that. As they climbed into the SUV, Laurvelle and Meramellia found themselves in the middle of the Palo Verde Desert. Laurvelle riding shotgun with Desser, and Meramellia sitting in the back. So, this is what it feels like to drive to your missions. Kinda chill, to be honest. It can get boring at times, which is why I ask you a lot of mundane questions. Mundane? Now, most of what you ask me is fascinating, especially when you get into believer theory. You're going to talk to Jackie about that soon, right? About believer theory? I'm not sure he's up to the task of understanding it. I've seen what it can do to people who aren't ready for it, and I don't want to risk hurting Jackie either. That's fair. I find it hard to understand at times, especially the creative freedom required to put it to use, like you do. Laurvelle laughed and watched Desser. Hardly. Desser is the one who was creative, not me. If only she was still with us. Desser looked at Laurvelle for a split second, having to keep her eyes on the road. How are you feeling, Laurvelle? You haven't talked much since we left the Monbella building. I don't know how I feel, ever since he went missing. Found an apprentice, like you had said, but I'm not sure I'm even ready to train him, let alone master believer theory, like you did. But you were always the smarter one of us, Desser. Desser smiled and flipped on the AC. You should have said something before. You know I'm used to the desert heat. Meramellia watched Desser and frowned. She's not real, Laurvelle. I know that, but there's so much I want to tell her. Desser continued to drive and reached in the back for a laser rifle. I got this for you, by the way. I figured you'd want a weapon of your own, and where we're going, you'll need one to protect yourself with. To take down the Dust Devil? Something like that, yes. Just hold on to it tightly, okay? Hey, Laurvelle, how do you feel about this job? Do you like it? Laurvelle slowly nodded and looked out the window. It's a nice job. Lots of interesting things to see and do. Why do you ask? Desser sped up the car. Well, it's also a dangerous job, you know? I just want to make sure that if something were to happen to me, that you'll be fine. Miramelia leaned forward and stared at Desser. She really said that? On the night of her disappearance? Isn't that, I don't know, foreshadowing? You think she planned her disappearance? Doesn't make sense. I'm not saying she planned to disappear that night, but I do think we need to further investigate what happened to her. Fortunately, we won't be able to see anything once we reach the point where you fell unconscious, so there's nothing to see after that. Then let's get to that point in the memory. A few minutes later, the inevitable happened. Desser's SUV swerved to the side of the road, hit a boulder, and flipped, just as Laurvelle remembered things happening. It was at this point that he fell unconscious and the memory froze in place. Meramellia slowly climbed out of the SUV and looked around, trying to find any clues as to what exactly happened. The tires aren't damaged at all, and we didn't see anything on the road either. Laurvelle shook his head. The police investigation ruled out foul play. I know that much. And I remember what happened after that. Desert went missing after the crash, and eventually the desert sweepers, who were on their way to another mission, found the SUV and dragged me out. A week later, I wake up from my coma, and they help me recover, which takes 2 months. A month after that, I meet Jackie, and now we're here. Maramelia nodded and kept looking at the tires. Did they ever tell you how long it was before they found you? No, and it wasn't likely that they found me immediately. After all, they were going to an unrelated mission and just happened to find me. Maramelia shook her head and pointed at the road. No, they were already here. Look. Look over there. Isn't that them? Frozen in place was a black muscle car, an 1868 Veterine Outlaw that was owned by the leader of the Desert Sweepers. Laurvelle stared at it in awe and then looked back at the SUV. They saw the accident? The police report doesn't mention them at all. At least not including their report on rescuing me. And yet, Laurvelle looked inside the SUV again, and sure enough, Desser was still in there, conscious and smiling at Laurvelle's seat. Why didn't they rescue her? Did she even need rescuing? Maramelia, is there any way we can walk over to their car and look inside? There might be some clues in there. Maramelia shook her head and sat with her back against the SUV side. No, because you didn't look in there before passing out. If you walk over there right now, everything inside will be blurry. Some things likely won't even appear. Trying to use any of that data as evidence is dangerous since you can't prove which parts are real. It's best that we stick to what we can already see clearly. Then, what do we know? Desert's car crashed, and the Desert Sweepers arrived almost immediately. They rescued you, but not Desert. The police report doesn't mention the Desert Sweepers at all, and they didn't see Desert either. Do you think they had something to do with her disappearance? Maramelia sighed and looked over at the muscle car. It's a possibility, yes. But I'm not sure we have the full story, Laurvelle. We'll need to revisit the crash site and search for more clues. I'd also recommend checking with the Desert Sweepers in case they're willing to give you more information, but that might be dangerous. Why is that? Well, let's assume that the Desert Sweepers did in fact hide evidence. In fact, we'll assume that they caused the crash and abducted Desert, which would be the worst case scenario. If that's the case, then why would they tell us anything? In fact, why would they not try to keep us silent instead? Then what do you propose? We could try going covert with this information. Maybe find somebody who can gather more clues for us and figure out what's going on? You mean we ask Farlow? That's a possibility. He's already helping us out with offering leads on cryptids and anomalies, so it's likely he'll be willing to help us figure out what happened to Desert, too. But at the same time, it wouldn't hurt to visit the Desert Sweepers and make small talk with them. Maybe get their leader drunk and convince him that it tells more than he claims he knows? Laurvelle laid down on the sand and looked up at the night sky. I suppose that can work, yeah. He laughed and pointed at the sky. You ever get tired of that? Maramelia looked up and squinted, trying to see what Laurvelle was talking about. The stars? Or the faraway planets? No, the sky as a whole. It's always so dark. It's not always dark, you know. What do you mean? Every time I've seen it, it's been dark. I've never seen it be light. What do you call that anyway, when the sky is light? In other places, like Vilka or Varia, it's called day. And this dark period is called night. But of course, all we get is the night. Why is that? I don't know. I'll pull up some historical documents later, see if any of them mention the daytime. But as far as I know, it's only nighttime in Palavera City. Anyway, we should continue to your other memory of the time when you first met Jackie. Right, I almost forgot about that. Laurvelle's van slowly drove over to them and parked itself right beside the edge of the road, and the pair climbed inside. Meramellia, you were here for this mission, weren't you? Yes, I was there. For this memory, imagine yourself as two people, yourself and your past self. Your past self will go through the memory as you did back then, and your current self will be able to explore the memory freely. Okay, I'll do that. Past Laurvelle was sitting in the driver's seat while Laurvelle sat in the back of the van with Meramellia. They watched as past Laurvelle read the mission objective to take down the Dust Devil. He remembered that this was what he and Desser were supposed to hunt down 3 months ago, and this time it was much more important as the Dust Devil would be intercepting a bus that was on its way to Palavera City. So, Laurvelle, what is it about Jackie that confuses you? Once the bus stops, we're climbing inside and reading the bus driver's directions. What? Why does that matter? Well, Jackie never told me where the bus is coming from, so I did a bit of digging around. Nobody else from that bus ever appeared in Palavera, nor was there any bus that departed from Vilka, which is the only town along this road. If he was coming from Varia, on the other hand, the bus would have been on the southern road, leading north to Palavera, not the eastern road leading west from Vilka. With the people not existing, the bus not existing, and Jackie not telling me where he came from, it's hard to know what exactly is going on with him. And when you combine that with the fact that he picked up on the most basic parts of believer theory so quickly, such as being able to fire that finger gun in the Bronze Age nightclub, it's hard to know what exactly he is. What if he's something even more complex, like a manifestation of believer theory itself? I need to know what kind of creature he is. Alright, Laurvelle, now you're crazy. It's true, just watch. They watched as past Laurvelle stepped out of the van and approached a devil that was standing in the middle of a dust cloud, staring at an incoming bus. Meramellia and Laurvelle knew the story very well. Laurvelle had stopped the devil. Jackie climbed out of the bus and watched the fight, almost being drawn to it. Laurvelle noticed that Jackie had been watching and immediately realized that Jackie was capable of Palaveran foresight, and immediately offered him a job. While Jackie went back aboard the bus to grab his bag, Laurvelle had climbed inside and spoken with the bus driver, which meant that he had a glimpse of the bus driver's schedule. Alright, so where did you come from, bus? Laurvelle was now looking at the schedule, eager to find out where exactly Jackie had come from. Alright, so you came from nowhere. Laurvelle kept staring at the schedule, shocked to find that it was left blank. Meramellia, come over here. I found the schedule, but it's blank. Maybe you didn't actually see it? No, I definitely saw it. And it's not empty or blurred. It's definitely the schedule. It just says, data not found, proceed to Palavera City Station. Any idea what that means? It's hard to say, really. It could mean that there was an issue with downloading the full schedule when the bus driver was printing it out. No, he wouldn't have driven it in the first place if that was the case, since there's likely smaller neighborhoods on the way to Palavera, especially as you leave the town of Vilka. Then what do you propose as the reason for a blank schedule? Laurvelle watched the bus driver as well as all the other passengers. Isn't it odd? Meramellia was standing at the steps leading into the bus. What's odd? Nobody noticed the dust devil. Well, no, most people don't bother looking up. That's where we got the term Palaveran foresight from, remember? It just means the person actually looks up ahead of them. Nothing more than that. Most people just mind their own business instead. Laurvelle shrugged and stepped out of the bus. Yeah, I guess you're right. Okay, I think we're done here. You said you had plans for later tonight? Meramellia nodded and smiled. I do. Let's head back to your place, to your loft. I have never seen it before. Laurvelle nodded and opened the door to his van, revealing they were now entering the loft atop the Monbella building. There's a queen-size bed that doubled as his couch, and a fairly large television mounted to the wall. This is my place. It's fairly small, but I like it here. Meramellia smiled and sat down on the bed. It's cozy here. Laurvelle sat down beside Meramellia, quickly turning on the television and tuning into a movie before slowly lying down on the bed, Meramellia following him. Thanks for spending tonight with me, Laurvelle. I really appreciate it. No, thank you, Meramellia. You've been a great help to me, especially with seeing the desert sweepers in that first memory. I don't think I would have ever noticed them without you. Meramellia smiled and sighed, slowly closing her eyes and disappearing as she fell asleep. Laurvelle closed his eyes as well, his dreams slowly fading away, leaving him to rest in the darkness. For the first time since the accident, he had a feeling that things weren't going to be so bad, and that for once he was ready to save the world. He just didn't know what to save the world from.